Now we have all had about 24 hours to just sit down and process the news that we were given yesterday about the causes of death for both Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy. And look, as soon as they said hantavirus, I already knew how the internet would react. I already knew that the internet would not react well to that information. And trust me, I've seen the comments in my comment section. I've seen tons of reactions online. And a lot of people aren't really buying it. Now, personally, I am. I accept the explanation that we have been given, but I would have never have guessed that this was the cause of death. So many possibilities went through my mind. Hantavirus never slipped through my mind even once. And even now, after hearing that this is the cause of death, it's still very shocking and surprising. I mean, I'm not an expert when it comes to this illness, but I didn't know that people just randomly drop dead from it out of nowhere. People who had not really shown any signs of being sick. I didn't think that people would just be out running errands, living their daily life, and just drop dead from a virus that they maybe didn't even know they had. I wasn't aware of that. I've heard of people getting sick, dying in the hospital. But maybe this just shows how tough Betsy is. Instead of there having to be some big conspiracy here, maybe this just shows how strong and tough Betsy is. Because we know from the looks of things, on the day that she left this world, she was still running around doing her errands, taking care of the dogs, making sure they had what they needed, getting dog food, taking them to the vet or whatever, doggy daycare, picking up medications, probably picking up groceries, doing her errands, living her life, and still caring for her aging husband that we now know was in way worse condition than we were ever told, which is very weird as well. We'll get to that later. But I think what happened here is everyone deals with sicknesses and illnesses different. Some people just power through. And I think Betsy was powering through. I think that there's a huge possibility here that Betsy was so dedicated to taking care of Gene and taking care of their dogs that Betsy did not take the time to care about herself. Now, I appreciate someone who isn't selfish, who cares about other people, right? My mother, when I was growing up, she would do everything, anything for me and my brother, but she would rarely ever do anything for herself. And if this story tells you anything, it tells you that, hey, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what you're taking care of, regardless of how much you have on your plate, at the same time, you still got to worry about yourself. At the same time, you got to take care of yourself too. Because if you're not here, if you don't take care of yourself and you're not here, who's going to take care of all of these things that you're in charge of taking care of? So I think it's a good quality that people have to put other people and put other things first, but sometimes it can be bad. Sometimes it can literally be the death of you. Sometimes it's okay to put yourself first to make sure that you can still be here for others. Or to just make sure that you can still be here for yourself, enjoying life. And I think that maybe we have a case here where Betsy was dealing with Gene, a 95-year-old man, who we now know had advanced Alzheimer's, which, by the way, I'm sorry, but is this a Southern thing? I have to ask. I know we're talking about something else, but I cannot help but call it Alzheimer's. Like all timers. Is that a Southern thing? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below. Do any of you all say it like that? It's like I know that's not how it's supposed to be pronounced, but I can't help it. But anyways, I think when it comes to Betsy, what we're looking at here is someone who was just, she put herself last. I mean, we know for a fact that in the emails and the messages and that she was sending to people, the communications that she had leading up to her death in her final days of life, Betsy wasn't complaining about being sick. Betsy wasn't complaining about feeling bad. Hell, I don't even think Betsy was complaining about how much she was dealing with. So, when I looked at this case originally, I was wondering, is there a possibility here that just Betsy was dealing with so much and she couldn't take it anymore? And maybe did something like just ended it all? That was a possibility on my mind. But what I hadn't thought about, what I should have thought about, is the possibility that maybe Betsy was like overexerting herself, straining herself in a way. It's easy for people like us, from the outside looking in, it's easy for us to look at this situation like, oh, they had so much money. Look at their nice house. Of course they had so much money that they could have took care of this. They could have had a man taking care of that. It's easy for us on the outside to look at them and feel that way, but we don't know their situation. And from everything I've learned over the past week or so from looking at this case, Betsy didn't have help. For the most part, Betsy was running that household herself for the most part. So I think that Betsy was just so focused on everything else that she didn't even have time to focus on herself and worry if she felt bad. Literally, until the last minute that she had on earth, Betsy was taking care of her family. Betsy, on her last day, Betsy was riding around doing the things that she needed to do to take care of her family and her household. I know there's been a lot of questions about the dog. It was revealed that the dog had recently had surgery. And often when you have a procedure on a dog, the vet will recommend crate resting. And I think that's what happened with their dog. I think their dog was locked up in the crate for a reason, not because they were evil pet owners or irresponsible, not even because, they accidentally left the dog in the crate and, they died. But I think the dog was in a crate resting because of a procedure it recently had. Often the vet will recommend that you keep your dog in a crate for a little while so they're not moving around too much and doing this and that, re-injuring themselves, irritating old wounds and what have you. So I think that explains what happened to the dog. But yeah, as far as Betsy goes, it's crazy to think that someone with this virus was just living their day-to-day, not even worried about it, just taking it like a champ. You know what I mean? Because for it to be so bad that you literally died from it, but you're just doing your daily routine up until you just drop from it, that's crazy. That's crazy to think about. Because if you look up how this virus works, it can make it very, very hard and painful for you to breathe. And it will just get harder and harder to breathe until you literally cannot breathe anymore. And that may have been what happened to Betsy, but the whole time she was still on go mode, taking care of her husband, taking care of the dogs, trying to take care of the household. In fact, a medical expert spoke out about this recently, just yesterday. I want to read to you all what he had to say very quickly. Wife's hantavirus, or Gene Hackman's wife's hantavirus, became fatal quickly. She needed hospitalization, expert says. Gene Hackman's wife died of a rare virus that few had heard of before a major update in the case on Friday. We have now learned that she had about a week after contracting the hantavirus before it became quickly fatal. Dr. Jeffrey Klausner, an infectious disease expert and professor at the Keck School of Medicine of UFC, says that hantavirus impacts the body fast, and since symptoms present themselves as a chest cold, and the virus is so rare, it is often misdiagnosed. Hantavirus spreads to humans from rat, moose poop, and urine, which is usually contracted when someone cleans the attic or basement or something like that. And it kills 1 in 3 people. Like any other severe virus, the percentage of survival is much greater if it's diagnosed immediately and the person is hospitalized, with Klausner saying hantavirus is akin to severe pneumonia. As for her final days, Betsy was likely having a harder and harder time breathing until she finally lost consciousness in the bathroom and died. So, that does not sound pleasant, obviously. But apparently this thing can hit you kind of fast. And often people who get it, they think, oh, I got a cold, I got the flu, I'm going to be okay, I'll get better in a few days. And then they wait a few days and they don't get better, they get dramatically worse. And by then, sometimes it's too late. So, from the sound of it, I'm no expert. From what I've looked into, it seems as if Betsy, in her final days, was probably not doing too great at all. I don't think this is a case where Betsy was feeling fine and had no idea that anything was wrong. No, I think this is a case that Betsy should have been in the hospital. But instead of taking care of her health and worrying about herself, Betsy put everyone first. Betsy put everything else first. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying, anything against her for that. But I do think that people who are following this case should learn from it. Because what are we here doing if we don't learn something or gather something from the stories that we talk about? Sure, some of this can be entertaining. Sure, this may help you pass the time by in your day. But you guys need to gather and learn lessons from these stories. And that's the lesson that I gather here. Because I know there's a lot of women watching this channel right now that have a lot on their plate. You're making sure your husband's got dinner. You're taking care of the kids. You make sure their lunches are packed. You're sending them off to school. Maybe you're working a job. Maybe you're working 2 jobs. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, but your stay-at-home job is worse than working anywhere else, or more stressful anyway. I get it. I know there's a lot of people out there like that, and even myself. Sometimes I need to worry more about myself. I think all of us should look at this story, and what we should gather from it is that we all need to take time out of our day, out of our week, out of our month, to check in on ourselves, to make sure that we're okay. Make sure that you're okay. You're here on YouTube looking at all of these crazy details about everyone else's life, but are you okay? Do you have the hantavirus? I'm joking, but you get what I'm saying? Yeah. But let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.